had to be.
10 minutes ago, and we murmured our how do you do's. I wanted to ring off the bells and fling off my arms and to sing off the news.
Impossible for a plain country bumpkin and a prince to join in marriage, and 4 white mice will never be 4 white horses.
Are you the sweet invention of a lover's dream? Or are you really as wonderful as you seem?
Hello, this is Chuck from Above the Basement, Boston Music and Conversation. Every so often, we get the opportunity to catch a musical coming through Boston and then sit with the actors or musicians for a chat. We were especially lucky to have a conversation with the lovely Zina Ellis, who plays the Fairy Godmother in Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella at the beautifully restored Emerson Colonial Theatre. We saw the show the night before talking with Zina and had a fantastic time. The show is a fresh new take on the beloved tale of a young woman who was transformed from a chambermaid into a princess. Hilarious and romantic, Cinderella combines the story's classic elements: glass slippers, a pumpkin, and a beautiful ball, along with some surprising twists. But we aren't going to give anything more away. You'll just have to catch the show before it moves on to another town. Cinderella runs in Boston through December 30th, and you can get your tickets at emersoncolonialtheatre.com. So here is our conversation with Zina Ellis, recorded at the historic Emerson Colonial Theatre in Boston, Massachusetts.
You have superpowers, so.
That is so very true.
Is that what they're called, superpowers?
Magical powers.
Magical powers.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to this.
Oh, wait, that's so funny. It actually is my resume.
It is your resume.
That's too funny.
It is.
They've done their homework.
We've done our homework. Well, the thing is, should I just say it?
Just say it, Chuck.
All right. Ron, I don't know if you know this, but I used to be an actor. So I was an actor in New York City. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. You know,
Are you always an actor if you've been an actor before?
It's
or is
like-
that like always like
It's
a dentist if you've been a dentist?
Is
I feel like
Is that how
yes.
it goes? If you were a dentist at one point in your life, you're always a dentist?
Oh yeah, as long as you keep up with your dues, I guess. But I mean, as an actor, like you could probably be in the Screen Actors Guild.
Well, you have to pay your dues. in the
I'm
Screen
gonna
Actors
start
Guild.
calling you
I was an
actor Chuck.
I was in Actors Equity, but then I let my thing lapse a long, long time ago. But you don't know this, but resumes for actors are very different from a regular resume.
I know. We call them CVs in the other
Yes.
world.
So, you know, the name of the play, the part you played, where you played it, and who the director was. So I was looking to see if I knew anybody that you've been with.
Yeah. Any luck?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
I hadn't been an actor since like the 90s.
Yeah, he was in like a commercial for Connect Four in
That's
the
not-
80s. Remember?
That's not true.
Pretty sneaky, sis. No,
But Jason Alexander, is that the Seinfeld Jason Alexander?
Yeah.
He's
I
cool.
know that
That's
guy.
cool.
He's fun. He's a great teacher, too.
Is he? Mm-hmm. Was that in New York?
That was at school.
That was at school at Yale. All right, cool. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we've
Yeah.
said it all.
Yeah.
We've confessed.
I'm not an actor.
And now we can move on.
But we're so glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
And we're so glad to see you with another outfit because you change outfits all the time.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I wanted you to come in the room like you did last night when you
my
came in and
gosh.
there's applause and
The smoke.
the smoke. You don't have that going on every time you come in the room?
Unfortunately, no. I don't have an entourage, a smoke entourage.
Well, you should. You definitely should.
We were here last night and really blown away by the performance. It was beautiful. I was there with my daughter, who's 10 years old, and her
yay.
friend, who's 10. And they were just, mouth open the whole time and loved it. And Chuck was too. You should have seen him.
I was a little weepy.
A lot to discuss. I think we'll circle back, of course. But there's nothing like that second scene where you come back and everyone's just like, yes. The fairy godmother is back. It's like you wait for it, and I didn't know it was going to happen at that moment. I mean, I know the story in general.
Right.
But I don't know, I thought that might be a good way to start, is just
Sure.
to think about that role and the connection you have to the power of the story.
It's a little deep for 10 o'clock in the morning.
Let's dive right in.
I know.
No, I love it, and it's really something we talked about in rehearsals is the idea of Marie both as like crazy Marie, the forest lady, and also as the fairy godmother.
She's
sort of
nuts,
being
I think was the line. Yeah.
sweet and delicate, but nuts, which is highly relatable.
Plus, what you had a foul mouth up there. What were those curse words you used? Fiddly dee or something?
Falderall and fiddle-dee-dee.
Yeah. I was
Chuck,
like,
this is not an
for
explicit
children's
podcast.
I know, we're going to have to make this
All right, go
explicit.
ahead.
Friendly. Yeah, so just like the idea of how even though you might think of this character as just sort of like breezing in and making all this magic happen and then sort of disappearing, our director Gina was like, no, this character is driving the story and, watching everything that's going on and piecing it together and saying, I see in Cinderella the ability to really make a change in this world. I see each of these different pieces that ends up playing such a big part in the story. Marie kind of puts it all together, which is very fun for me.
Right, and I hadn't thought of that till this minute about Marie being the wise woman that is the person in our lives that can be a mentor with a protege. When you think about a fairy godmother, I read a little bit about it, and I never thought of it as godmother. It sounds silly. I mean, I didn't grow up with a godparent, but that's really the role that you have with Cinderella.
Yeah, Marie definitely has a little omniscience going on. She knows some things. And
Yeah.
maybe she knows some things because no one watches their mouths while they're around her because they think she's insane. Or maybe she's got a little more going on.
Right.
There was a little bit of a crossover with the original story and pulling in today a little bit. One thing I noticed, and it kind of made me realize the same kind of thing happened with The Wizard of Oz. You were the conduit for her to get those things, but you were very much also the power is in you. It was very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Symbiotic?
No, that's way too big a word for me to think of.
It was mutual?
No, mutual. That doesn't even make any sense.
What did you say again?
It was empowering.
Yes.
You were empowering
Oh,
her to
I thought
to
you
do
said
that.
it was good for her and good for both of them.
And I kind of thought of The Wizard of Oz was the same way, where they said you always had the power in you, and even though it ends up being the shoes. But that's what I liked about it. It was pulling in that symbiotic.
Right. Oh,
part
it was
of
very. So you're saying it was very empowering.
It was empowering, yes.
Yeah.
But that's what I liked about it, and it wasn't just you giving her wishes. It
Right.
was about you helping her realize the power within herself.
Yeah, absolutely. That was another thing we talked about in rehearsals, the idea that part of her journey is that she thinks she needs the shoes and the carriage and the beautiful dress and all of that. But then in the end, which I don't think is a spoiler because we all know the story, the prince sees her for who she is, for her personality and her confidence. And we're excited to be able to make that really, really clear in our version of the story.
Yeah. Are you beautiful because of how I see you, or do I see you? Sorry, I'm going to botch the line. The beauty of that line that I cannot
I'm in
recite.
love with you because you're beautiful. You're beautiful because I love you.
Right,
Yes.
Is that how it is?
right. Do I love you
Yes.
because you're beautiful?
And do I love you because you're wonderful, or are you wonderful because I love you? It says so much about interhuman connections.
It does. And it might be, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
For real, yeah.
I forgot when it was, but when you said to her, every little girl or every girl strives to have that beauty and wear the dress and go to the ball and meet their prince, which back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, when Cinderella was out and all the other musicals were out, it stopped there.
Right.
And you have a beautiful mix of, and every girl can change the world
yes.
and can really create change.
Yeah.
So I felt that was very powerful.
That's one of my favorite lines.
And at the same time, you're not getting rid of the old who doesn't want to dress up and look great.
Right, right.
Tell us about when the rehearsal process, when he first sat down with you and said, this is how we're going to approach this musical. Were they talking about these themes? Do you remember how that went?
I do, and I'll also say that this version of the show is the one that played on Broadway in 2012. So there are a few other people, a lot of really wonderful, sparkly other people who have approached the role. So I think a lot of what they did is also a part of it, and our team on this production is a lot of people who were involved with the Broadway production too. So they have a very, very clear idea of how they want this story to be told and how specifically Douglas Carter Bean and David Chase, our music and arranger and book writer, wanted to approach it because obviously we can't talk to Rodgers and Hammerstein right now, but we can talk to these people who spent so much time with their work trying to piece it together. So I'm kind of coming to this story as one of many people who've worked on it and who have looked at this character and tried to understand her. So yeah, we did spend a lot of time just sitting down and talking through the script, and it was sort of challenging because, you know, I'm not in a ton of the story in terms of number of lines.
Yeah, but it's powerful.
Right,
and
right.
The message is almost overrides that in a sense, or it complements that.
There are definitely songs that can be delved into for lots and lots of meaning. And so sometimes it was, you know, looking at the songs in a lot of depth and thinking, how can I bring this idea to the words that I speak on stage too? And how can I make a cohesive story that sort of makes sense to my actor brain and that the audience understands and that is true to the story. And I think we did a lot of trying to understand the original, understand what's different, why it's different, and how we can just make it all make sense.
I want to dive into that a little bit more about, you said, from the songs and the melodies, the emotion and the meaning. How do you do it? What's your process, whether it's conscious or not conscious? And actually last night in the moment when you're performing, are you still trying to emanate that message?
Yes, always. I'm always trying.
You are. So in rehearsal and on stage.
Yes.
I mean, at the performance. Do you have a process?
My college professors would wish that I had a very concrete process. But I do a lot of textual analysis. I just spend a lot of time with lyrics and figuring out, what does this mean? What are some multiple meanings that this line might have? How does the music support what I think is going on in this song? How does the music maybe challenge me? For example, something that we spent a lot of time with was the song Music in You, which is the Act 2 song, because it is a very like soft, sweet sort of lullaby melody, but we wanted it to be, as you said, an empowering song. So sort of fighting against the like calming nature of the music and really finding the go get 'em in the lyrics and in the story that the story requires at that moment.
When did you get into Boston?
Monday night.
And did you come in on one of those carriages, or was it a regular? It was a regular bus, or
a special carriage called a charter bus. Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Where did you come in from?
Oh my gosh, where were we?
It's one of those things where you wake up in the city and you don't know where you are.
Truly.
Very rock and roll of you.
Exactly. We were in Champaign, Illinois. We drove from Champaign to Indianapolis, and then we flew from Indianapolis to here.
You mentioned no one can talk with Rodgers and Hammerstein now.
Right.
Which is true. But we can really listen to what they wrote on paper in the 40s and 50s. We can listen to the lyrics, and I guess there's new songs that they adapted for this version, right? I'm glad you mentioned that, because here we are in a beautiful room at the Emerson Colonial Theatre. This theater, as you probably know, is where Rodgers and Hammerstein kind of got their chops, right?
Yeah, it's really
Which is
exciting.
Pretty wild, right? Yeah, I wonder who the Fairy Godmother was back then.
Oh my goodness.
We need to look back at all of your Fairy Godmothers.
Well, I mean, something that I've sort of noticed looking at musical theater history and knowing Rodgers and Hammerstein is that there's always some character who's sort of like the Fairy Godmother. So like Aunt Eller in Oklahoma, Nettie in Carousel.
Really?
There are all these sort of wise women who...
It's not just Sleeping Beauty and some of the other classics. It's others.
I would say, they're not just the mother in the story, but there's some sort of familial figure with someone like Aunt Eller or Nettie. I'm thinking about these two are really stuck in my mind for some reason. They kind of are a part of the community. They tend to sing, something really like rousing in Act 1 and then something really meaningful in Act 2.
Yeah, sort of wise.
And so I think that is definitely a part of the Rodgers and Hammerstein DNA. And I think it's something, if you wanted to write a paper on it, I'm sure you could.
Yeah. And what is that about this place itself? You or your colleagues last night, was it something that came up either on the bus or while you were here in rehearsal that this is the very place?
Yeah, we're all just really excited and really thrilled to be here. We all follow musical theater news, musical theater history. And so for me, the most present thing that I was excited about was Moulin Rouge being here over the summer. And I was very starstruck, and they've got their little mural on the wall, which is so fun. And it's a beautiful facility. We're glad to be here for a sit down for more than just, a couple of nights and really get to know the space.
So last night when we were, people had fans in the audience. Like,
Yes.
there seemed to be, there are friends or family, or they looked like the people knew some of the people who were on stage. Is that correct? Or they were just so overwhelmed with your performance that they...
A few people are from New England, so
some
are
of the
from
people
Boston.
on the stage are from New England. Oh, great.
Some are from Boston, some are from New Hampshire. And there were also some performers who were previously on the show.
Oh, neat.
So they knew
they're in
every
the
single
audience.
word. Yes.
That's great. I wanted to ask you, who are your fairy godmothers?
Oh my goodness. Well, my mom,
Yeah.
my mom and my dad are both so supportive, sort of in their own ways. Like, my mom is also a singer. That I think is definitely where I get it and where I sort of learned. My dad is a retired computer programmer. So, so the acting thing.
You got left brain, right brain going on here.
Oh, yes. And so I think it took him a bit longer to come around to the acting thing. But once he realized there was no getting rid of it, he's been really, really on board, which is really wonderful.
He's okay with a Broadway production? He's cool with that?
He's fine. And then my voice teachers have all been really, really wonderful. My acting teachers, too. One of my professors at school, Dan Egan, he's everything. He's the greatest. My high school teachers. Yeah, I guess it's teachers.
So Dan is
it's
your
all
fairy
teachers.
godfather, basically.
Yes, and my high school choir teacher, Ron May. Truly, I think it's teachers. Teachers are fairy godparents. That's what it is.
That's excellent.
Well, it's a nice. What I hear from that is that you've had many mentors, but you grab different qualities from many different creative people and advisors in your life. But at the same time, your parents have been supportive, which is like a key core.
It helps
in your life. Yeah, I did want to know about the dress. Now, is this kosher for us to talk about?
Yeah, when we interviewed Blue Man Group, and we were under sworn secrecy not to tell their secrets. So I don't know if you're allowed to tell this.
It depends on your questions. I might be able to shed some light when I transform.
Let's put it this way.
That.
Let's put it this way. Yeah. Right before the magic, are you thinking, is this going to work?
Always.
Okay, so it is magic.
Yes.
Because I was wondering. So it actually is magic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because I thought it was some that I realized last night after talking with my daughter that it's actual magic.
It's magic.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Only magic, yes.
Yeah. Wow. You've been doing how many shows in general? Like, what's a rough estimate for Cinderella?
27.
Okay. You're well into this, obviously, but also, in a sense, it could be considered the beginning.
Yes.
When we talk about the new show and what the writer added, this is 2015, 2018. This is the era of Me Too.
Right.
This is everything Chuck was mentioning about in the beginning. What kind of feedback, if any, has there been public connection to you or to the cast about the effect? About what people feel.
Right. Well, I do remember on our first day of rehearsal, we had a little meet and greet, and Douglas Carter Bean, the book writer, came by.
He went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Amazing. I didn't know that. And he was saying, when he wrote this in 2012, he was saying, I had no idea that by this time kindness would be such a hot button issue.
Interesting.
What a great line.
It was iconic. And so that, I think, is sort of what we are thinking about a lot, is just the idea of kindness and of paying it forward and using what you have to help others, whatever that means.
As a power in and of itself.
So that kindness part where everyone is like, there's an insult. There was an insult thing. What do you call those?
Ridicule.
And
like what you do to me often on the podcast.
Then it turned into kindness. That was written in 2012.
Yes.
That's amazing.
I don't think anything has changed in the book. Anything significant has changed in the book.
No, but what's amazing though is that's surprising. 2012. We're not talking like 1982.
Feels like so long.
But then again, it's been just a few years that we've all been living this.
What's the matter?
Yeah.
No.
Robert Jones.
Oh, okay.
Well, hello. No, I was just going to jump in on what you were saying. Is that I think it's Rodgers and Hammerstein. They're timeless, right? I mean, if you think about, you were talking about South Pacific.
Yeah.
You said, and so maybe you didn't. Maybe,
I didn't mention South
but
Pacific,
You've got to
but-
be carefully taught, right? That song is all about racism and what it means, and hello, what's going on today. And I think there's always going to be something in the genius of their writing that lets us reflect on what's happening today. And it's always sort of oh my gosh, this has been happening for decades, and it's sort of cyclical. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, because you think, I mean, that I immediately thought, oh, well, he must have edited something and added something to the script to make it more relevant for today.
Nope.
But
Well, there was one line.
no,
Okay.
she's shaking her head no.
Okay.
But let's
so,
see, what line do you think?
Okay, so this is really interesting. Gets back to Robert's point about maybe it's our interpretation as well and what we can glean out of this. And it could be the delivery of the line, although I'm not an actor like you guys.
You're not.
However,
Years of training.
the line on stage, right? Who was it that said, like, the soul and the heart of a leader?
That's Cinderella.
Right?
Yeah, that has been in there the whole time.
And in particular, leaders in our nation.
It is not a targeted statement. It's always
Cause
gotten a
different
pretty
emotions.
big response.
Okay.
Yeah, the political lines definitely get like varied responses, but it's usually just a matter of how big is this laugh?
It's relative.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
This is not a polarizing musical.
right, exactly.
But it's there and people notice it, and we certainly noticed it. I mean, it's a funny line, but people kind of can put two and two together. And
I've heard a lot of
Thinking too
people
much.
who think that the story has been, or that our version of it has been edited recently.
I
and
assumed.
I'm always like, I mean, I truly think that, again, it's Douglas Carter Bean who sort of adapted the book to our sort of more modern version of the story. And I think he was generally thinking about what it means to be a leader and how Prince Topher, the prince in our story, is learning to be the best leader that he can be too.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because one thing we didn't cover was your role as Fairy Godmother and your relationship with Cinderella is not simply about here's your beautiful gown, here's your beautiful carriage, go and meet the man.
Yes.
Certainly it was about you can help change the world in some way. But the real, I think, genius of this was the connection to Topher and for her ability to get something so special out of him that helps
Yes.
the community. I mean, that's just brilliant.
I greatly appreciate how all of the characters are so fleshed out in this version. And I do like that, that the prince isn't just a distant prize for her to win or a goal for her to achieve, but that he's also a human being who's trying to figure himself out and figure out who he wants to be. She's also figuring out who she is and who she wants to be. And together they kind of, as you said, encourage each other, become the best versions of themselves, and help the people around them too.
Well, you could say that about everybody in the cast. Even the evil stepmother. You don't have the two stepsisters. It's not.
Well, you had the sympathetic stepsister.
right.
which
You,
is
Yes.
you
different.
don't have.
I love
It's not. It's not your Walt Disney Cinderella.
Right. It's
And
Rodgers and
so
Hammerstein.
you expect certain things to happen, and it's like, well, wasn't he supposed to do that? And isn't she supposed to be mean? And
Drew Barrymore, Ever After.
Oh, yes.
Similar too. It's based off the same.
Charles Perrault.
That's the version.
Yeah, Charles Perrault.
And
Yeah.
a lot of the things that are different to us are actually pulled from the original Charles Perrault fairy tale.
I read, it was just on a Wikipedia page, but I read about Perrault's version, the original version, and they said something like, when talking about the Fairy Godmother,
I think I know what you're going to say.
Perrault, it said, let me just read it.
Yeah.
well, do you know what he's going to say? You say it.
Wasn't it? I'm not going to get it word for word, but it's something about being gracious is better than gold or jewels, but having connections helps too.
Yes.
Was it that?
That was actually very well said.
It's all about who you know. That's what it is.
Yeah.
We got to cut this
Yeah.
short. Thank you so much. You have your own website too, right?
I do.
What's your website?
ZinaEllis.com.
I should ever be able to know that one.
So that's ZinaEllis.com.
What is
Yes.
Zina short for something?
No.
Ah, it's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Thank
Good luck on the rest of the
you.
tour.
Thank you so
And
much.
Thank
we
you.
really
I wanna
enjoyed
get-
your performance. That's
And
all.
thank you so much. Yeah. I want to get an autograph for my daughter, if that's
Oh
okay.
my gosh,
Can you
of
do that? I
course,
brought the
yes.
program.
And if you want
Aw.
our autograph, we'll do this. We can give you our autograph.
Amazing.
Sign up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
We would like to thank Robert Jones of the Emerson Colonial Theatre for his assistance in setting up this conversation, and also a big thank you to Zina Ellis for her wonderful work on the stage and for waking up so early in the morning to talk to us. You can follow Zina on her website at zinaellis.com. Cinderella runs through December 30th at the Emerson Colonial Theatre, and you can get tickets and learn more about this beautiful theater at emersoncolonialtheatre.com. Go to abovethebasement.com, where you can join us on Patreon, sign up for our newsletter, listen and subscribe to our podcast, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and look at all the nice pictures we post on Instagram. We are everywhere. On behalf of Ronnie and myself, thanks for listening, tell your friends, and remember, Boston music, like its history, is unique. How would you like to join us in creating great conversations that inspire and connect? Patreon is a membership platform that provides a way for creators like us to build relationships and provide exclusive experiences to subscribers or patrons. We have been self-financed since we got off the ground in June of 2016, but in order to continue to fully invest all we can in each episode, we need your patronage. For more information, please go to patreon.com/abovethebasement.